Hello and welcome back. Today we are making chickpea ball tagine, and this dish is based on a Moroccan dish that's like warm spices. We are switching out the meatballs for chickpea balls, which will hold up in this really beautiful spiced tomato sauce. And this is something that can go over top of couscous, or you could put it over whatever starch that you like. Rice is really nice, and some people even put it on pasta. So I'm gonna get started with the chickpea balls. And these honestly are nice just to make on their own, and you could have like a little vegan yogurt kind of savory dipping sauce for them. That's one application. I'm gonna do the whole thing with the tomato sauce so that you can see it today and decide for yourself if you want to do the whole thing or just part of it. The base of the chickpea balls, of course, we've got I'm using canned drained chickpeas. You can use fresh too. I'm going to be making a flax egg. So if you're not familiar with this technique, this is everywhere. If you are substituting an egg, you can use 2 tablespoons of flax seeds, and it really is advisable to get the whole flax seeds and grind them fresh yourself, because flax have sensitive oils, like omega oils in them, and you don't want them to go off, is for one. And also because the like sticky power, the kind of binding agent in flax, is more powerful when you grind it from fresh. So I'm gonna grind the flax fresh and then add it to 3 tablespoons of water, give it a little stir, and just let it sit while I'm getting the rest of the ingredients ready. And keep your grinder out for the spices. So I have a dedicated spice grinder where I do flax, and I make nut meal flours and oat flour and spices. Some people even do a separate one for flours and spices, so you don't have that flavor transfer. You could do flax in your coffee grinder, but don't do the spices in there. Your coffee will taste like human. So I've mixed it in here, and you'll see what I mean by eggy consistency already. You can see this kind of like viscous mixture, and that will get even thicker as it sits. So that is our flax egg. And a large portion of this is about the spices. So let's get some of these spices going. We've got some cumin, coriander, smoked paprika, and cinnamon, forming the base of some of the spice profile of the actual chickpea ball. And then we're going to use some of those same spices again in the sauce, but we're going to do them whole in the sauce and ground it in the ball. So I'm using my palm to measure, but it's actually pretty accurate once you've done it a while. I'm doing like equal parts of cumin and coriander in here. Those are my only whole spices in here. So I'm going to whiz those up into a powder and then add them together with all of my other spices. This is one recipe where there is a bit of a long list, and so it's helpful to have all of your ingredients ready before you get to assembling and cooking and all of that stuff. I will also mention that if you want to grind your spices in a pestle and mortar, that's totally fine, quite a bit more elbow grease. And if you're using ground cumin or coriander, just use the same amount. So use like a teaspoon of ground cumin or coriander if you're using a teaspoon of seeds. And I think we're off to the races here. Okay, let's assemble these balls. So the method that I use doesn't cook the garlic or the onion before it goes in. It's just going in raw. And so use your food processor to blitz up your onion. I just did a very chunky chop of that onion, and it will break down in the food processor. And I'm doing kind of a lazy chop of my garlic. In it goes. Spices are going in. And so I've added cinnamon and smoked paprika. Oh, I have the perfect amount of smoked paprika. Great. And cinnamon is really going to make more savory flavors come out of this. So it doesn't taste sweet. You might think of like cinnamon as just a cinnamon bun kind of spice, but I really urge you to try it in some of the savory applications. It's so good. Don't want to overdo it though. So I did like a 1/4 teaspoon for one recipe. And then I'm going to use some ginger. So I used my knife to peel this ginger because the ginger was a little bit on the drier side. If the ginger is quite fresh, I don't bother peeling it. And I'm going to put a piece about the size of my thumb in there. Just give it a quick chop first so it blends evenly with everything else. And then I'll take a moment to blend up all the vegetable matter and then add the chickpeas and the rest of the ingredients. Now chickpeas and breadcrumbs are going in. I am using panko breadcrumbs because this brings like a lightness to it and it doesn't have such a like heavy ball flavor. If I'm not using panko and you want to do a gluten-free alternative, or if it's just what you have around, then use puffed rice cakes. And you can just crush up those puffed rice cakes and get them in there. So measure out a 1/3 cup of crushed rice cakes. Oh, I can feel those onions. Okay, time to mix this stuff. And I'm gonna put a little bit of olive oil in because adding a bit of fat to your chickpea balls is really going to enhance the texture of it. And the zest of a lemon. You're gonna find lemon in a lot of Moroccan recipes. And if you have it, I would recommend preserved lemon because it's a bit easier to find. I'm just using regular lemon here. But if you do come by it in a Mediterranean or Middle Eastern grocery store, look for preserved lemons and you will be using the whole lemon. So you'll be using, in this case, just the zest. But if you find the preserved lemon, then use a slice of the whole lemon and you can chop up the whole thing with the peel and everything. It's a pickled lemon and it brings a little pop to it. But I'll go ahead and just add my lemon zest. I used my knife to peel it really carefully, just avoiding the white part underneath the pith. You can use the small part of a box grater, or you can use a microplane zester for that too. Okay, chickpea balls have come together. It looks like cookie dough, which is perfect because we're gonna form it like cookie dough. I almost forgot a couple things. Flax egg is in there. Salt is in there, and now I'm adding a little bit of cilantro. Ah, there we go. Okay. It's like have your ingredients prepared. So let's form these into little chickpea balls. So I've got a little tub of water, and I get water on my hands first. And then roll the chickpea ball. So it's about 2 bites per ball, or about 2 tablespoons. And I've got my pan heating up back there, just gently, with a little tiny bit of oil in it. And then in your warm pan, with a little bit of oil, I'm going to brown a few of these and just don't overcrowd the pan. So do a few batches if you need to. So taking care to flip these over, getting brown on a couple of sides. I've got some browning on the sides here. Right, chickpea balls are ready and just waiting. They're not perfectly round. I'm fine with that. You're gonna have a little bit of variance in shape and stuff, but they're all gorgeous. Okay, so this starts like a typical tomato sauce, but then you're gonna kind of spice it a little bit differently. So I'm gonna start with onion, garlic, ginger, and just to make this easy, I'm going to use the big part of the box grater to do all of it. Sometimes this makes me cry pretty hard. So I'm gonna try my best game face here. And in the background, I'm going to just get that same pan that I did the chickpea balls in, starting with a little bit of oil on low or medium. So that I can put the onions in right away. And of course, once you get too close to your knuckles, don't sacrifice them. You can use these little bits to make vegetable broth or something. So I want this sauce to be pretty smooth, which is why I'm grating the onion. You could do a small dice, but it's a bit more work. And it's also why I'm using passata, or these strained tomatoes, rather than tomatoes in a can. If I was substituting canned, I would use crushed tomatoes, but then you're gonna get quite a bit thicker of a sauce. So it's nice to keep your eye out for the strained tomatoes to form a quick, kind of very consistent sauce rather than a chunky one. Just got my ginger on the grater here. Okay. Now garlic, ginger, onion goes straight in the pan. And in the meantime, I'm going to quickly peel some carrots and slice them up. This is just adding a little bit of a different texture to our sauce because we've got the smooth sauce, and then we'll have a little bit of distinguishable carrot bites. So I slice them on the bias, a little bit at an angle. And this is not a long cooking sauce, so I'm gonna make them pretty thin. Like that. Okay. So they'll cook in under 10 minutes. Again, this is a tagine in flavor, and I'm not doing the traditional cooking it in a clay tagine vessel. I'm going to do something a little bit quicker to have dinner on the table in about half an hour or so. So I put the onions, garlic, and carrots all in together, and then I'm going to get my spices all ready. Okay, and spices here are whole rather than ground, and it's just adding a little bit of different texture, a different like flavor pops when you find a fennel seed, then your fennel flavor really pops in that bite. So I'm adding a little bit. Fennel was not in the balls mixture, but I'm adding it to the sauce. So I've got cumin, coriander, fennel happening in here. Straight to the pot, and I'm also using cinnamon stick, and just to release more of the aroma, because this is not a long cooking sauce, I'm going to just break it in half. And it's okay if little pieces come off, you'll just dig those out of there at the end like you would a bay leaf. And kind of sweat everything together to release all of those smells. And then we're going to be adding the liquid once the onions are mostly cooked and everything smells aromatic. And have on hand your olives and raisins. I know that sounds crazy, but trust me here. So we've really got like little sweet hits kind of throughout the tomato sauce, and it's just so lovely. If you are not using raisins, it's totally fine, but I could also suggest that you could use like sliced dried apricot is really nice, and sliced dates are also pretty nice. So in Moroccan cuisine there is quite a bit of mixing with sweet and savory, and they also have a really incredible variety of dried fruits at the markets. So let's go see what we're doing in a pan. Okay, now I can smell the spices and the onions. I'm gonna add the passata. Turn it down a little bit so it doesn't splatter. And this is only going to cook for 10 minutes before you add your finishing touches. The raisins and the olives, just to warm them through at the end. Okay, so our sauce is simmered for 10 minutes. Now we're gonna add the olives, the raisins, stir them in, and we're just gonna dot this with the chickpea balls. Make sure those are well in. If you see the cinnamon sticks, you can take them out now. Just make sure they don't make it onto someone's serving plate. I like to keep them in there because if I have leftovers, then they continue flavoring the sauce overnight. Okay, and I like to serve this up family style. So although I didn't bake it in a clay dish, I am gonna serve it in one. You can use whatever casserole dish that you have as well. That works just fine. So I'm gonna just line up my chickpea balls in here, and then just before serving it, pour the hot sauce over top. Making sure I cover all of those chickpea balls. Oh, it smells so good in here. And I'm serving mine with a side of couscous, so in the 10 minutes while I made the sauce, I had enough time to make couscous, which only takes 6 minutes. Okay. And then just garnish with either cilantro or parsley. So pretty. Great, and there you have it. There's your beautiful chickpea balls. It's not as hard as it sounds, is it?